so just your name and where you work.
Okay, I'm Chrissy Roddy, and I'm a school counselor at Carolina Springs Middle School in Lexington School District 1.
Okay. And what does revenge-seeking behavior look like in your middle school?
With girls specifically,
Specifically with girls.
in our setting, we tend to see a lot of the non-traditional, more of the covert revenge behaviors, which includes a lot of exclusion and the acting as if that person doesn't exist and just shutting them out of the group or the clique that they're a part of. And we see a lot more of that than a lot of the outward, I'm going to hit you to get back at you kind of thing that you might see at younger ages. So with the girls especially, they'll kind of try to ruin a reputation verbally and start spreading rumors and trash talking, and it's really a lot of turning people against that person.
Okay. And what interventions would work best for this type of revenge behavior?
What we typically do here is try to intervene as early as possible, because once a rumor gets started, even if it's told to 2 or 3 people, it spreads really quickly. And the student also feels like the entire school knows. Even though there are over 750 students here, they're just absolutely sure that every single student knows this rumor about her. And so we really try to be proactive as soon as we hear something is going on and deal with it. A lot of times we'll try to get the students in conflict in, because we find so often that it's just a matter of miscommunication. And it's that so-and-so, girl A texted girl B about girl C, and now girl C is on the out, even though girl A made it up about girl C, and it just gets so tangled up and dramatic. And the girls love their drama at the middle school level. So we'll try to get the girls in, girl A and girl C, and say, what is the problem, what is going on, and really clarify. We find so often that it really is, girl B is stirring things up, or girl A is stirring things up, and that's not really what was said, and that's not really how girl B feels or how girl A feels towards girl C, and they have to just clear the air, and then they're fine a lot of times. A lot of times they still have conflict, and we have to tell them that they need to move on to other groups, other people, because it's going to become a discipline issue. If it's disrupting class, interrupting any kind of learning, if they're shouting at each other in the hallways or in the cafeteria, we're really forced at that point to do something more assertive. We always try to involve the guidance department first, and we call it kind of their get out of jail free card. And that we will talk about the conflict and see what happens, or we try to teach coping skills to the individual if they just can't resolve the issue on their own, or if they find that they just really don't want a friendship anymore. Sometimes it's kind of almost going through a grieving process if that's been your best friend since kindergarten and now you guys hate each other, and the drama just is not going to go away. So we deal with it a lot of in different ways, just depending on the situation.
Okay. And in your experience, how is revenge-seeking behavior different for middle school girls than maybe for other populations?
In the middle school, kind of as I touched on a little bit before, it gets very covert and sneaky. At the elementary school, it might just be, well, I'm not your friend anymore, and I'm just going to get back at you by, I guess not letting you play with me that day on the playground. But it's a lot longer lasting in the middle school setting. So that's one of the big differences we see, is that girls and boys for that matter too, middle school students can hold grudges, and so much of it is developmental, because they're wanting to figure out who they are, and what better way to figure out who I am than to look outward around me and see how other people view me, and that has a lot to do with how they deal with things. So at the middle school level, it's just much different, because they're going through adolescence and puberty, and they're kind of crazy at this phase because they don't know what they're doing, and they don't know why they're doing what they're doing. And as little kids, it's much simpler, because they just do it because they don't like you anymore. And at the high school, they've kind of leveled out a little more and can deal with it a little more maturely.
Okay. And what advice would you give for someone who's dealing with this behavior for the first time? Someone who's new in the guidance?
I guess my first piece of advice would probably be to not get caught up in the drama, because I think when you want to be involved and help, I think it's very easy to get caught up in the he said, she said, and then all of a sudden you're swept up in it too, and you don't have that clear objective position that you need. So I think that just really sitting from the outside and remaining objective and not getting sucked into it is probably the best thing that a person starting out can do, because otherwise it's going to be the situation that you're always caught up in the drama, and that student's going to come to you for every little thing from there on out, because you're the person who's going to take care of it, rather than teaching them to handle it themselves.
And then just to bring it all together, any helpful hints, maybe resources that you sought out when you were first starting, that would help you understand revenge-seeking behavior in girls?
I don't necessarily always recommend Lindsay Lohan as any kind of role model, but her movie Mean Girls is really a good look into some of that girl bullying, the revenge-seeking behavior. And I think it does give a good picture of what some girls are dealing with, and they are at the high school level, but I think it's still a valuable resource. There's another movie called 13, and it's Rachel Evan Wood is in it. And it's a really great movie looking at how some of the middle school girls change, and just kind of knowing developmentally how they function in their heads is a really valuable resource to know how to deal with them in the real life. There's also a really good book called Queen Bees and Wannabes, and I wish I knew the author's name. Rosenthal, Rosenberg, something. But it's a really good book, more academic read, but just a lot of research and good information about the hierarchy that comes along with some of that female bullying and the revenge-seeking behavior that comes along with that. So those are some of the resources that I've used in the past.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome.